Coming up on this Thursday edition of Daybreak, President Park Geun-hye calls on lawmakers to throw their weight behind her economic stimulus plan for next year, saying Korea should not miss its golden opportunity to take a leap forward. More than 6 months after the Sewol-ho ferry disaster, divers recover another body from the sunken vessel. The search goes on for the 9 victims who remain missing. Plus, with the US economy showing signs of life, the Federal Reserve pulls the plug on its 6-year-long monthly bond-buying stimulus plan. Daybreak begins now. Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Thursday, October 30th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broome and you're tuned in to Daybreak. Our top story this morning, President Park Geun-hye has presented her push for next year's government budget, which comes in at nearly $20 billion more than this year's. In an address to the National Assembly on Wednesday, the president said new measures contained within it will help make the economy more innovative. She called on lawmakers to get it and other related bills passed as quickly as possible. Our Choi Sun starts us off.
Despite the risks of financial losses and ballooning debt, the president said if Korea doesn't invest more to address the challenges of low growth, low inflation, and a weak Japanese yen, the Korean economy could fall into a long-term slump. Manufacturing production in the third quarter shrank by nearly 1%, and exports also dropped significantly.
지금이야말로 우리 경제가 도약하느냐, 정체하느냐의 갈림길에서 경제를 다시 세울 수 있는 마지막 골든 타임입니다.
Referring to her 3-year economic innovation plan, President Park talked about her vision of a creative economy which involves converging IT and different sectors to spur growth and stimulate the job market. And so the government will increase its support for entrepreneurs, startups, and small to mid-sized firms next year by 17% to a total of some $8 billion. The government has also significantly increased funds for safety and welfare to bolster both the hard and software of safety management and to provide the country's seniors and low-income households with more financial support. President Park also asked the parliament to cooperate in completing by the year's end reforms of the public pension system, which has suffered an expanding deficit.
그동안 국가를 위해 헌신해온 공무원들의 희생을 요구해야 한다는 점에서 솔직히 어느 정부도 이런 개혁이 두렵고 피하고 싶을 것입니다. 그러나 매년 막대한 국민 세금이 투입되어야 하는 상황을 그대로 방치할 수는 없습니다.
Before wrapping up her speech, President Park said the government managing finances alone will do no good unless the parliament moves to pass a backlog of bills designed to improve the people's livelihoods and to strengthen the nation's safety system. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News.
Well, right after her address at the National Assembly, President Park sat down with the leaders and policymakers from the 2 rival parties to try and find some middle ground on bills that have been stuck in limbo for months to try and get Parliament going again. Our Ji-man-gil reports.
At the meeting, President Park Geun-hye and party leaders shared the view that the rival parties put aside differences and speed up long-stalled legislation that has been blamed for a slow economic recovery and public sector reform.
원래 목표는 그 경제를 활성화시켜서 세수도 늘리고 이렇게 하겠다는 건데 그 고리는 끊어지는 거거든요. 예산만 써버리고 그렇게 되지 않도록 시급한 상황이 꼭 필요한 법안들만 이제 고르고 골라서 이렇게 부탁을 드리는 거니까 좀 시급히 처리를 좀 해주셨으면 하고.
Both parties agreed to pass next year's budget by the legal deadline of December 2nd, and the 3 bills seen as the most urgent by the end of this month. The 3 bills will help uncover the truth behind April's ferry sinking, enable public sector restructuring, and allow the government to go after illegally obtained assets. Speaking of the government's economic policies, the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy's interim leader raised concerns over the government's stimulus measures.
Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan's stimulus drive dubbed Choinomics does not seem to lack specific policies to actually spur economic growth and restore consumer confidence. We believe the key to economic revitalization is improving livelihoods of the general public.
Moon said he believed the president will long be remembered in the country's political history if her government successfully removes inefficiencies in the public sector or reforms the pension program for civil servants by the end of the president's term in 2017. Wednesday's meeting with rival party leaders and policymakers comes as President Park seeks a breakthrough in the prolonged political deadlock between the two rival parties. Gymnastics, Arirang News.
Now, high-level inter-Korean talks that would have been held today if North Korea had agreed to the South's proposal have been cancelled. The North said it will not show up unless South Korea bans activists from launching propaganda leaflets over the border. Seoul says it's still open to hold these talks, but added that it will not reach out to the North for the time being at least. Our Hwang Sang-hee reports.
North Korea has turned down South Korea's proposal for a second round of high-level talks slated for this Thursday. In a message sent early Wednesday morning via the Inter-Korean military hotline, the North said it is up to Seoul to decide whether to proceed with the high-level talks or to cling on to the anti-Pyongyang leaflet campaigns by South Korean activists. South Korea's unification ministry reiterated it has no legal grounds to ban the activities of civic groups.
Although we maintain a consistent stance of resolving issues through inter-Korean dialogue, we cannot give in to unjustifiable demands.
The two Koreas agreed to meet for high-level talks sometime between late October and early November upon a visit to South Korea by a high-level North Korean delegation last month. Since then, tensions have escalated over the controversial leaflet launches, even leading to an exchange of fire across the border. While the meeting may not happen within the planned time frame, some experts say both parties will want to talk things out within this year.
High-level talks are essential for improving inter-Korean relations and must take place this year in order to smooth things out for 2015. It could take some time, but the possibility of a second round of high-level talks is high.
Still, it's a question of who will reach out first. South Korea says it is open to talks, but made clear that it does not have plans to make additional proposals to the North for now. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Washington's special envoy for the six-party talks has listed some representative examples for North Korea to show it's sincere about abandoning its nuclear ambitions. Speaking to reporters in Seoul on Wednesday, Sidney Seiler said Pyongyang should end its nuclear activities and refrain from provocations. But he made it clear that Washington has not loosened its preconditions for resuming the multilateral talks. The talks aimed at denuclearizing North Korea include the two Koreas, the US, China, Japan and Russia, and have been stalled since 2008. Mr. Seiler is currently on a three-nation trip that includes stops in China and Japan. North Korea and Japan have wrapped up talks on Pyongyang's investigation into Japanese nationals abducted by the North in the 1970s and 80s. Speaking to reporters after meeting North Korean officials in Pyongyang, Junichi Ihara, who is Tokyo's top diplomat for Asian affairs, said his delegation stressed that the abduction issue should be given the highest priority. He also urged Pyongyang to speed up the process. North Korea said the investigation was underway in burial grounds of Japanese citizens. Pyongyang stressed it will inform Japan of any developments on that front. The two sides also touched on a number of different issues, including Japanese survivors of the war who stayed in the North. The talks held in Pyongyang were the first of their type in 10 years. Now, after months of fruitless dives in very dangerous conditions, search teams scouring the site of the sunken Sewol-ho ferry managed to retrieve the body of one more of the victims early this week. Gwon-soo has details on this and the ongoing efforts to find the 9 others who remain missing all these months after that fateful day.
Nearly 24 hours after it was located inside the wreckage of the ill-fated Sewol-ho ferry, divers were able to retrieve the body this Wednesday evening. It marks the first discovery in 102 days and comes more than 6 months after the ferry capsized and sank off Korea's southwestern coast. Due to decomposition, officials could not identify the body but said DNA tests would be performed soon. The body is presumed to be that of a female victim, as it was wearing stockings and found near a women's restroom on the 4th deck of the vessel. Currently, there are 4 female victims missing, 3 of whom are high school students. Earlier in the day, divers failed in reaching the body due to poor underwater visibility and fast currents, delaying the recovery operations. Victims' families raised doubts about the efficiency of ongoing search efforts as the latest discovery was made in the exact location they had specifically asked divers to search. Divers said they had previously swept the area more than a dozen times, but believe currents may have recently carried the body to where it was found. The discovery pushes the death toll in the tragedy to 295, with 9 still missing. This past weekend, victims' families voted to continue the underwater search operation inside the ferry and to hold off on raising the 6,800-ton vessel. The families of the missing held a press briefing Wednesday afternoon, calling on the government for more thorough search efforts, as they believe the body found on Tuesday raises the chance that the rest of the missing have not been carried away. Kwon-soo, Arirang News.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
Well, it's quite a momentous day in terms of economic news because after some 6 years, the US Federal Reserve has officially called time on its stimulus bond buying program. The widely expected decision came at the end of a 2-day meeting of the Federal Open Market Committee. In a statement released on Wednesday, the Fed noted improvements in the outlook for the labor market and the underlying strength of the broader US economy. The central bank will also maintain the 0 to 0.25% target range for interest rates for what it called a considerable amount of time. The Fed has cut back on its stimulus program in increments since last year after introducing it at the height of the global financial crisis in 2008. Korea's business climate ranks higher now than it has ever done before, at 5th on the World Bank's Doing Business report. The Finance Ministry said the achievement also marks the 4th straight year Korea has been listed in the top 10. The lofty spot was granted due to improvements in business startups, granting construction approvals and upholding the rights of minority shareholders. Now, the World Bank has been analysing the business environments of around 190 countries annually since 2003. Singapore was top this year, followed by New Zealand and Hong Kong. Korea is charting a path to the widespread use of digital documentation, which means a more paperless society, not only in meeting rooms and conferences, but also in our daily lives. Now, this is one of the goals being pursued at the ongoing International Telecommunications Union meeting down there in Busan. Our Shin Se-min reports.
Everything is going digital these days. From paying taxes to filing out resident registration documents, the use of electronic documentation has made tasks like these much more convenient. Korea is already a leader in the government digital documentation field. But some sectors are still reliant on paper, and experts say it may be a while before the use of electronic documentation is as widespread.
It is a cultural task, and it won't be easy trying to bring everyone on board. But considering the era that we live in, digitalizing documents is something that needs to be done, and soon. There will be no more paperwork if it all goes digital.
But there's still a number of obstacles. Only 43% of institutions and businesses in Korea use electronic documentations, lower than the government's aim of 50% by 2015. And experts attribute the gap to a lack of understanding and awareness among everyday users. A group of experts gathered on the sidelines of the quadrennial ITU conference on Wednesday to discuss the possible directions for Korea in fully implementing these services on the domestic front and making inroads to the global market.
Fostering growth among private enterprises is the key to helping the sector expand. If the government puts more effort into sponsoring these services in the finance and medical sectors, where electronic documents are widely used, there will be no concerns about reaching the everyday user.
The National IT Industry Promotion Agency has already gotten a head start, and officials there say digital documentation services will soon be a reality in the IT sector. Shin Se-min, Arirang News, Busan.
Now it's some more great news on Korea's cultural front, because it's looking increasingly likely that Nong-ak, which is a type of traditional Korean farmers' music, will be added to UNESCO's World Heritage List next month. The panel responsible for adding new cultural items has recommended the Korean community band music and dance and rituals, as you can see there, being scripted. 6 North Korean variations of the traditional folk song Arirang were also recommended. This would mark the first for North Korea to make it onto the intangible cultural heritage list. South Korea's version of the same song was added 2 years ago. A final decision will be made at the UNESCO headquarters in Paris in November. Well, it's time now to have a look through the international headlines we're following on this Thursday morning here in Seoul. For that, we turn to Eunice Kim, standing by at the news center. Good morning, Eunice.
And welcome back to you, Mark. The number of confirmed Ebola cases continue to soar in West Africa. But maybe, just maybe, the situation in Liberia is improving. The World Health Organization's Assistant Director General Dr. Bruce Aylward said he is cautiously optimistic that the epidemic is slowing down in Liberia, a country which has already seen more than 2,700 Ebola deaths. He cited positive signs such as empty beds in treatment centers and the number of burials declining. He said the week-to-week trend could be attributed to the major public awareness campaign in the country, followed by a rise in safe burials and in infected people isolating themselves. Overall, Aylward said the number of confirmed cases has reached 13,703, with the fatality rate remaining consistent at 70%. Nearly all of the Ebola deaths have been in Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea. He underlined that the fight against the virus is far from over. The WHO plans to increase the number of treatment centers and beds and is seeking foreign medical teams to staff them. Zambian President Michael Sata has died following a period of deteriorating health. His wife and son were by his bedside when the 77-year-old was pronounced dead at London's King Edward VII Hospital late Tuesday night. Sata, who served as the country's leader since 2011, had disappeared from public view months ago amid local media reports saying he was suffering from multiple organ failure. The government did not publicize his condition. Vice President Guy Scott, a white Zambian of Scottish descent, has been named the country's acting president Wednesday. He said new elections will be held within the next 90 days. Some 100 people are feared dead after heavy monsoon rains unleashed destructive landslides in central Sri Lanka. Local reports say an area of about 2 kilometers was affected by the landslide, crushing about 140 houses in Badula district. Several national highways were also washed away. A top military official told the AFP news agency that homes were buried under 9 meters of mud. Another official said many children have become orphans as their parents were believed to have been home when the mudslide struck. Bad weather and the possibility of more landslides are also hampering search efforts.
And a good Thursday morning to you all as we kick things off with the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Games, which is still about 4 years away. But the organizing committee has plans for the figure queen Kim Yeon-ha leading up to the big event. Now on Wednesday, the Pyeongchang Winter Games organizing committee announced that Kim Yeon-ha has been appointed as the newest honorary ambassador for the Winter Olympics in 4 years, with an official ceremony set to take place on November 4th. The Vancouver gold medalist becomes the 6th honorary ambassadors, as names like Chu Shin-soo of the Texas Rangers and ballerina Kang Soo-jin were also previously anointed. And now shifting over to the 2014 National Sports Festival, which is currently taking place in Jeju. And on Wednesday, a new world record was set in the men's 70-meter recurve competition. And the new world record holder is 22-year-old Kim Woo-jin out of Cheongju City Hall team, as he shot 352 points with 36 arrows, breaking the previous world record of 350 points. But on the same day, the previous record holder Kim Jong-ho broke his own record with 351 points, but lost to Kim Woo-jin by a single point. And moving over to artistic gymnastics this time, where the latest world rankings were announced in the sport, but a familiar name was not included in the list of 46 gymnasts. Despite his nickname God of Vault, 22-year-old London gold medalist Yang Ak-sun was not included in the latest world ranking after finishing with a silver medal during the Incheon Asian Games and finishing in 7th place at the World Championships earlier this month. A huge drop for Yang Ak-sun, as he was previously ranked tied for 4th in 2013, but North Korea's Lee Se-kwang jumps up a few spots after a year, as he's currently ranked tied for 11th after winning gold at the World Championships. And moving over to domestic baseball this time, where SK Wyverns ace Kim Kwang-hyun held a press conference on Wednesday as he formally announced his decision to go MLB-bound next season. Now, speaking alongside SK Wyverns top officials and his parents, the 26-year-old discussed his plans leading up to him being posted sometime next month. He added that it's not the money he's interested in, but his dreams of playing in the majors. Kim, who made his debut back in 2007, has a career record of 83-49 with an ERA of 3.30 and is estimated to be posted for around 10 to 12 million US. And speaking of major leagues, let's finish things off with the 2014 World Series between the Kansas City Royals and the San Francisco Giants. And what has been an incredible series so far will be even more exciting as the series goes to a decisive Game 7. Now, with the American League champions, check that, facing off in a must-win situation, Royal starter Yolando Ventura comes up big as he throws 7 shutout innings, scattering just 3 hits. The Royals lineup did the Reds, scoring 7 runs in the 2nd inning alone as he win Game 6 10-0. Meanwhile, Game 7 starters will be Tim Hudson for the San Francisco Giants and Jeremy Guthrie for the Kansas City Royals. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. Well, right now, the most parts of the nation is waking up to clear skies, but it will get cloudier as the day goes on. But a milder morning today, as the current temperatures are about 2 to 4 degrees higher than yesterday. And afternoon highs will also be rising to above 20 in many regions. So today will be a bit milder and cloudier under dry conditions. So yes, dry weather advisory is still in place for parts of the east and mountainous regions in Jeju, so be extra cautious if you're dealing with fire. With that, let's take a closer look at the readings for today. Now, the low in Seoul kicked off at 8. Then the daytime high will be rising to 21. So as Gwangju and Busan and Daegu will be topping out at 20 this afternoon. And on to other regions. Jeju Island and Daejeon will be getting up to 21, while Dokdo-si highs of 17 and Mount Keungang will get up to 13 later in the day. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, those are the stories we have for you at this hour. Korea Today is coming up in about 30 minutes' time, and we'll be back throughout the day with many more news updates. And I'll be back at 10 a.m. Korea time. Until then, goodbye.